Hi, this is Roger. This is another one of the plants that came out of the box full, and this was the one at the time had no ID on it. That I had no idea what it was. It looked a little bit like a coleogyny, but it could have been, I even thought it might be like that Bifraniara thing I've got. But basically Beatrix got back to me and identified those that didn't have ID on them, and this is a Dendrochilum cobianum. Now I've looked this one up. This is a cool grower, or cooler grower. It's not that bad, but to all intents and purposes, to put this into my set mentality, this to all intents and purposes grows incredibly similar to coleogynes. So it wasn't a bad guess, was it? But it's desiccated to a degree, and a lot of its roots are incredibly dry and papery. So although it looks like it's got roots, it's difficult to tell whether these roots are good or not. I'm going to try pulling one and see if it just... Yeah, it is coming apart quite easy. So I think quite a few of these roots have gone over. And quite honestly, this, looking at where it comes from, grows on mossy branches and occasionally on rocks. But in the main, it's an epiphyte that grows on mossy branches. Well, if it grows on mossy branches, you know what moss is like. If it dries out, it dies. So I would suggest this comes from quite a moist environment and does not like to dry out. Hence the desiccation, probably. But they're not worth keeping. So that gives me what is a relatively young plant, I would suggest. 4 pseudobulbs, and one of these two is the latest lead, and it could be both. Yeah, it was heading in that direction. If you put those back on, yeah, so that one followed by that one a bit bigger, and then it looked like it branched in both directions at the time, and those two are the latest leaves. But these leaves are dehydrated, definitely. So there's not much to clean up on this, quite honestly. It really is a matter of getting some hydration in the plant and trying to encourage some new roots to grow. I may have to wait for new growths to push out, but quite honestly, this is not really the right sort of media for this plant. This needs to go in some like seedling bark with some sphagnum moss. It needs to stay moist and hydrated. So I'll go and get myself some media, give the base of that plant, give the hydrogen peroxide treatment. I'm going to do that all the time now, make sure there's nothing living in there. So easy to get one of those little tiny bush snails down in the base of a plant, and then you pop the flipping thing up and it's in its element, it's in its happy place, promptly chewing your new roots off as they come. So make sure everything's dead, and then we'll get that in some seedling bark with some moss. It doesn't need a big pot. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, I'm reusing the pot it came out of. There's nothing wrong with it, and quite honestly I don't think it's been in that pot long. This bark is good. It's not bad at all. It's quite hard, it's showing no signs of breaking down, although some of the pieces are quite soft. But either way, it's now in, well, there was a little bit of medium bark left in the tray from the last time I was repotting, so I just left that there. It hasn't been used. And mainly the small seedling bark, and I'm going to put some moss in there. Now this is not compulsory, but I'll give you the reasons why I tear up my moss into small pieces and try and get the grass out while I'm at it. There's often bits of grass and stuff in the moss. Well, if you can pull them out, all be well and good. I doubt if they would hurt. But if the moss is in very small pieces and you mix it in with the bark, it's nice and even throughout the mix. If you leave the long strands in one piece, you tend to get a little bit of a hot spot of moss. Whereas if it's in tiny little pieces, it evenly distributes throughout the whole mix and helps the whole mix stay evenly moist. Well, that's my theory. It might not even be true, but it's what I've always done when I put moss in a pot. When I'm putting moss on a mount, then it stays in whatever size pieces it's in. I don't touch it. If it's in great big long pieces, so be it. But in a pot, I like it to be in smaller pieces that spread around the mix nice and evenly. That's my theory. I always use my bark dry. The moss is obviously wet, but I do squeeze out a lot of the water. So the moss is damp, not dripping all over the place. And the bark is dry. It just finds its way in around the roots better if it's dry, because it doesn't stick to everything. Right, now as I say, a lot of these roots I'm not sure are even viable, but they're capable of branching, so the idea is to get this root system to rejuvenate itself. And what I'm going to do is, a little trick, is just twist the plant slightly, which makes the roots distribute themselves more evenly. I'm not pushing the plant down in yet, because I want to get in under the base of the plant. So I'm doing that first. Yeah? If you push the plant down and then try and get the bark in under the plant, you may miss bits and you'll end up with air pockets. Now, if there was a cattleya, that wouldn't matter. Chances are the roots would grow into the air pockets anyway. They like air around their roots, but you know, the information I've got on this says it grows on mossy branches and it's a cool grower. Well, where you get mossy branches and cooler temperatures, you tend to get quite lush green moss. It looks wonderful. I love green moss on branches. But as such, chances are it stays moist. I'm just going to ease that down in, not brute force, just gently round the edge of the pot, just to push the media reasonably firm without messing the roots up. Now, are you going to stand up on your own? This is the question. Hopefully you are. Well, you will do when I get a bit more media around that side, because there's a gap. Trying to keep the base of the pseudobulbs just on the surface without burying them. If you have a trouble with the plant standing up until its roots get a hold, a little trick you can do is put some large chunky bark round the top of the pot, and it will just hold the plant in place. Then you can take it off again once the roots hold the plant up on their own. Yeah, it's not exactly not wobbly, but then I think that will do. These roots had a lot of signs of, because it was in such large pieces of bark, I think they were just drying out, quite honestly. So they haven't stayed hydrated. I'm just putting a couple of pieces of the larger bits out of here, just around the edge, just to help keep it upright for a minute or two while it gets the roots established, without keeping the base of the pseudobulbs soaking wet. That's the idea. Okay, that's that one done, and apart from keeping it reasonably cool and keeping those roots hydrated, that's all I can do with that one for now. The two latest leads are, I'm not moving it, it's not dead centre in the pot, but if they do shoot out from either side or in front or whatever, they've got room to grow at least the next set of new growths and maybe two sets. So that's Dendrochilum cobianum. I think it's Cobb's Dendrochilum. Love the way people put their names on the plants when they discover them. So that's that one done. That one will get a water, and that can just be put in a place in the grow room where it's relatively shaded. There's nowhere deep shade in the grow room, but down near the floor, somewhere on a low shelf where it stays cooler, and we'll see if it picks up. That's another one done.